Gavin James was sitting alone in an old rundown hotel room. It looked like this hotel had been built in the 50s, maybe the 60s. It probably had one of those sleepwalking bear signs on the outside. Do you remember those? Anyway, now it was rented by the hour. And here he was, sitting on the bed that creaked. He could feel the coils from the mattress. The carpet was still green. Probably had been remodeled in the 70s. There was wallpaper on the walls. He was alone, scared, and probably running from the law. He thought. They must have found her by now. He hadn't meant to kill her. It was an accident, he'd say. She'd made him so angry. I mean, how dare she treat him like she was so much better than him? So hoity-toity. He'd walked into her gift shop, and granted, it was in the, that side of town. The town he'd never been to, never grown up in, never knew anybody from. Not his side of town. But still, he went in there with money, and he wanted to spend it. He was going to buy a gift. He looked around, and she looked him up and down, and he could see her nose curl up into her face like she was disgusted. She asked, is there something I can help you with? And he could tell she didn't think he deserved to be here either. He'd answered that he wanted to buy someone a gift. His daughter, actually, and he told her that he wanted it to be special. She asked what his price range was, and she was pointing out some really expensive necklaces. Well, this locket right here is very nice. It's gold. It'll run you about $550, but she'll never forget it. It'll be a special piece. His stomach was sick then. He knew that he probably shouldn't have come in. He told her that his limit was something more like $50, and she scoffed. Actually scoffed. She said, you might be better off in another shop. I believe there's some stores downtown that maybe you could look at, or there's always Walmart. And he could feel his temperature rising. His neck was throbbing. He was shaking. He was both humiliated and angry. How dare she talk to him like that? She didn't have to say that. She could have let him look around, see the prices, and find out for himself. And he could have just left. She made him angry. The way she looked at him, like she was afraid to be standing there with him. Yes, maybe his clothes were dirty, but guess what? Some people work for a living. I guess he made her nervous. But why? He was just in there to buy a gift. and he could feel himself seething as he looked at her, all prissy, her expensive clothing. Her hair was beautiful, and she probably spent $300 just for that haircut. Here she is looking at him with his dirty jeans, and his hands have calluses, and he doesn't remember the last time he got a haircut. So he left, and he waited outside. And he waited. And when the street lights came on, she walked out. She turned around, put the key in the lock, and she locked it. And she started to walk down the sidewalk, and as she did, he walked quickly across the street behind her. Her heels were clicking on the pavement, and he walked quicker and quicker, and she began to walk quicker and quicker, so she knew he was there. And, as he suspected, she was afraid. So he began to run, and as he did, she began to run. She couldn't run in those heels, and he caught up with her, and he put his hand around her mouth. He pulled her into the alley, and he shook her, and he told her, "You're not better than me. Who do you think you are? I wanted to buy a gift for my daughter, and you had to humiliate me? Make me feel like I'm not a good enough father? Make me feel like the money I earned wasn't good enough for you? How dare you?" She was saying something under his hand, and he lifted it up, and she began screaming, and he put his hand over her mouth again, and this time he put it over her mouth and her nose. He was so angry he could have squeezed her head until there was nothing in it. Then, as her eyes had gotten big, they were staring at him in fear, or something more than fear. He could feel the life drain out of her. Her eyes went dull. They stared off into nowhere. Before he knew it, he was holding her limp body up by her head. Good. Good. He dropped her to the ground, and he kicked her one time for good measure. He looked around and found the dumpster, and he picked her up. Even at a dead weight, she was light. She weighed probably less than 100 pounds. He put her in the dumpster. He threw some boxes on top of her. He looked around, and there was nobody there. He calmly walked back to his car. He got in, he drove around, and he didn't know where else to go. He's been in this hotel room ever since. He didn't mean to. He just wanted to tell her how angry it made him that she treated him like that. She made him kill her. She made him. What else was he supposed to do? She started screaming. He was on parole. He couldn't be caught with this woman in an alley with her screaming. He had to kill her. He lay back on the bed. He fell asleep. When he woke up, the room was entirely dark. There was no noise. He got up, walked into the bathroom, decided he should take a shower, turned the water on, took off his clothes and got into the shower, and it felt good. The hot water running over him, washing the day away, washing the scent of her perfume off of him. Maybe nobody found her. Maybe it'll be fine. Maybe they'll come and they'll get the trash and she'll just be another missing woman. Maybe. And he started to feel better. Then out of the corner of his eye he saw a shadow outside of the shower curtain. It moved quickly. "Hello?" he said. "Hey. Hello?" He saw it again. This time, it was standing in front of the shower curtain. So he quickly pulled it back. He was going to nail the guy that had broken into his room. And there she was. She wasn't alive. She wasn't even solid. But she was there. And she lunged at him. This ghostly presence of this woman lunged at him, pushed him up against the shower, hit his head so hard he almost passed out, and he could feel her hands around his neck, and they were tightening and tightening, and her eyes still had that dull, empty look in them as she stared into his eyes. And he knew that his eyes were beginning to have that look as he gasped for air. He could not pull her off of him because when he tried, there was nothing there. He could not pull her hands off of his neck because there was nothing there, but his throat was being squeezed. He couldn't take one final, last breath before his body slid down the shower wall, slumped into the bathtub, the water still pouring on him, his eyes wide open, staring into nothingness. That's how they found him the next day. Nobody ever did find her body. He was right. The trash came and picked it up the next morning, early. She was listed as missing.